really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess, screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Here's a damn good thing. We've got some winning team conversation to have today. Pacers last night on the road against Brooklyn. It was far from a masterpiece, but you do see, don't you, signs of this group all of a sudden now becoming what we all expected them to be at the beginning of the season. And it does start with Tyrese Halliburton. So you get that, a game over 500 now. Actually, maybe 2 games over 500 now. I apologize. And an opportunity to make a little bit of headway tomorrow night against Chicago at home. And then on Friday night against Golden State and Trace Jackson-Davis back for that single moment inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The former Hoosier and Center Grove Trojan comes back on Friday. But a hell of an opportunity to make a little headway and make up for a lot of the hand-wringing we did over the course of the first couple of months. And that's exactly what we did. Hey, I questioned my thought. And I have said this before, there is nothing that I want to see work out more than this. And in large part is because, you know me and being a lover of basketball being one, and I know everybody wants to put down the NBA, and I can't stand this and I can't stand that. Yeah, I don't feel the same way. I stinking love basketball, and I'm sorry, it is basketball. Shot-making ability, athleticism, all that combined. It is such a higher level than we all look back in the great era, the eras in which we love so much. I love that too, but still, it is incredible to watch. And you have seen the work that this team has done recently on the road, where prior to they couldn't get a win, to now playing more of the brand, the style, the pace, the tempo that we expected, and playing to a man more like we expected. Now, the other expectation as we move further down the road is going to be this. You're going to get a lot of conversation nationally and really locally right here about what needs to be done, because you've got a situation on the horizon regarding Miles. We know that contractually, not right now, but for the future, that is something that's going to take high, very heavy consideration. And you're going to have some options, I'm assuming, to try to get better, maybe to add a piece, maybe not, but maybe. And then you await the return, which we're assuming comes relatively soon, of Aaron Nesmith. But you do see it. And I think in large part what you see, I love watching Benedict Mathurin. And I know sometimes he will tend to drive you a little crazy, but I think that's every player. I love his attitude. His attitude is like 100% opposite, at least what we see publicly. 100% opposite than everybody else basically on that team. It is like all business all the time. I'll give you a great example of it. The walk-off with Jeremiah Johnson of check that, almost said that wrong, of FanDuel Sports. By the way, they go to Channel 13 coming up on Friday. But let's just say Pacers TV. JJ had him on the walk to the locker room at the half, and he didn't want much to do with it. This is like, I am out here to play, and that's about it. And it's funny, even in the walk-off itself, you could see his teammates want to have some fun, whether it's the regulator or T.J. McConnell. And Mather's not all about that. He just is all about the business. And I do think you need that dynamic. And the one thing that does stand out, and you can see it, it's not like this defense is remarkably better, but it is about this defense improving. There is more want to, as you can see in that improvement. And part of that want to, in terms of individuals, would be that of Benedict Mathurin. You can see it. And let's face it, man, in anything you do, when you get on a streak and you're doing it better and it's consistently better, you feel better, right? In whatever you do, whatever field you're in, whatever career path you have decided to pick, whenever things are going good, everything seemingly is going good. And you could tell. You wear those emotions on your sleeve. And you can see a team right now that's playing a hell of a lot better. And certainly that is a far cry from how we felt going back, for example, to early in the second week of December. They have hit a mark right now where you're feeling much better about all that is going on, and we'll see if they're able to. What are they, like $100,000 beneath the cap, and we know that they don't want to do that. But interesting nonetheless to see if they might be able to add a piece. And then also interesting prioritizing Miles, which is going to be coming up, and obviously they're already having the wheels in motion to try to make a final decision on that. You can also see with Miles, when Miles plays well, this team is playing at its best. Simply put, when Miles is active, both ends, this team is playing at its best. And it is good to see. Honestly, when you look around, you look at IU last time out on the road in Philadelphia at the Palestra, and that win over Penn State. IU's playing much better. And we will talk about, we actually brought this up with Don Fisher, whether or not they play better without the two bigs in the lineup together. Malik Renew out with an injury. Seems like they're more fluid. There's more of a flow. And I'm not suggesting that there's any comparison to be made whatsoever. But remember, we're used to an argument basketball-wise like that around here back in the Turner and Sabonis, or Turbonis, as you like to reference that days. Both guys on the floor at the same time, which was clearly a square peg in a round hole. And then you've watched the past couple of games with IU, with Ballo by himself and Goody in the lineup and Renew being out. I'm not suggesting Renew is not a good player. I mean, hell, offensively, he's been their best player. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes it is about the flow and the construction and who's out there together. And clearly in these past two games, which for the most part, other than the first couple of minutes of the game before last, it has been without Malik Renew, and you've seen this offense. I think you're probably feeling more – I think you're feeling at a higher level better about it right now than anything else. With the Boilermakers, they come off a win. With the Boilermakers, it is still odd to watch them without Zach Edey and watch other teams so freely get into the paint and basically do whatever they want. But that is, again, a rite of passage when you're without the two-time National Player of the Year and somebody that was just such a high level of consistent winning influence. And it was an influence on both sides of the floor. And that's something that you can't get that back. That's a once-in-a-lifetimer for most. I'm not just talking about big guys in general. I mean, hell, Purdue's had a host of big guys. But somebody that influenced the game on both ends to the degree in which Edey did, that is not something that just in a minute you get over. So now we're going to start, with the Colts done with the season. I know wild card action coming up this weekend. We'll certainly start talking more and more of an influence of basketball here moving forward, without question. I mentioned the Pacers coming up tomorrow night at home against Chicago. We went over Brooklyn last night. We certainly can discuss that. Yeah, I find it interesting how teams approach things. And we talked about yesterday at length the decision to basically bring back everybody but. And rightly so. And I just kind of said this in jest regarding bringing back Gus Bradley. It was more in jest, in protest of just sticking with this same program as you have, especially over the last 4 years, which clearly doesn't work and does not show the damnedest sign whatsoever to working anytime soon. And believe me, you may feel like, well, you got to take some time and see your quarterback, and he's only 22 and blah, blah, blah. But you look at those players that actually are good, that are higher-level, productive players individually on this Colts team, and their clock is in motion right now. You don't have time to be blanking around if you like these guys. If you're, for example, I know a lot of you are going to look back at the Denver game and you're just simply put not going to forgive Jonathan Taylor, and this certainly had influence on how the season went, but I would also argue that Giants game probably could have happened anyway, because that's just this Colts team in general. You knew something, somewhere, was going to stub the toe of the Colts, and that was the season in a nutshell. That's been really the time in a nutshell, especially the last 4 years. But if you're Jonathan Taylor, and he ran all over the place this year, ran all over the place late in the season, even in that Denver game, where you had that incredibly unfortunate situation. But he ran all over everybody and looked as dominant as a runner as you can imagine. How much time does he have remaining? And does he look around and go, I don't know about here. How much time we taking again? Does he look at it as sticking with us and believing in us? Or do you look at this roster and go, we're not damn near anything right now, and they're not changing up a damn thing, so hell, we're going to get the same deal. And again, as I mentioned earlier, my clock is ticking. DeForest Buckner said he's going to help recruit. The Colts have had money. That is always and always will be your most influential recruiting agent, is that of heavy-duty finances you're willing to drop on somebody. And according to the Colts and Chris Ballard, you always have to hear, well, we had interest, but we tried, but, which is going to be the story. For the shoe, it's going to be we tried, but one of these days. We tried, but didn't get him. Normal circumstances dictate that if you have the cash and you're willing to pay it, that players like, for example, a year ago, Danielle Hunter will decide to come here. And DeForest Buckner said yesterday he's going to help recruit, either yesterday or I think at the end of the game, whatever the case. DeForest Buckner has been very outspoken, very honest about the situation. And there is so much, and I know that Stephen Holder disagreed with this point, but when you start talking about how egos influenced a negative path on your season in that locker room, you cannot tell me that crap's not wrong in there and that something doesn't need to be done. I do know this. Winning is the greatest Band-Aid of all time. It just makes you feel better on all levels. It is the great drug. It is the great drug. Winning. Winning will cover up a lot of things. But the first thing you have to do is win. And again, as I asked yesterday, what is the hope of moving forward with this group? Why should you have such a deeply rooted belief? Because to most of us, it just looked like Jim Irsay has viewed the entire issue and not living up to expectations and being disappointing. It's out of more of convenience than it is, hey, we need to do something about it. Or identifying the issue. Because if you seriously looked at this and then you listen to the players, it's not just me yapping about it, but looking at the players themselves or listening to DeForest Buckner. Is there going to be a player in that locker room you would trust when he is talking, that the truth is being told, that there is a window in there where you're not located, you never get the opportunity to go? If there is a window to the inside of that locker room, and what would go on that's going well, what would go on that is going on negatively, if there is a window there, would you count on DeForest Buckner, in his words, to be telling you the truth? I mean, that's like the only guy that you would count on, right? That doesn't give you all the BS in this case. So if he says that, have you really looked? Have you really truly evaluated on the interior? Is it more about gathering all the information as necessary, or is it more just out of convenience? You got 2 years remaining and 4 years remaining. Yeah. They're going to blank with that right now. The Gus Bradley thing, it's not like this is, oh, really? Oh, this year? Yeah, I know. This year was really a surprise that the defense didn't play well. I mean, hell, you knew that last year. But they held on to Gus Bradley. Why? Because of convenience. The quicker that you look and evaluate and you identify the issue, the quicker you can find a solution. And dragging your feet does nobody any good. And that's what they are doing. That's what they have done organizationally. And that's what I simply put overlooked back in 2022. I feel bad about that now. That's a bad take. That was not a clown show. You know, back then, that was an owner, that was people at the moment that cared and knew that things were going wrong, much like going all the way back to when Ryan Grigson was fired. That was, what, in February? And they brought in a consulting firm, and normally I think consultants are jokes. I think you guys all, especially in radio, I don't want to hear anybody consulting me, what I've done for 25 years around here out of market that wouldn't have any knowledge of it whatsoever. That's just kind of how I feel. Right or wrong, just my hard-headedness, my hard-headed nature. But they brought in a consulting firm. I mean, hell, they even addressed that with me. They said, what could this organization do to get better? This consulting firm. And I wrote this down at the time, and this seems like a flawed idea, but at the time it felt right. I wrote Peyton Manning's name at the top. I said, bring back Peyton Manning in some form or fashion. That's going to be how you're going to make people believe. Peyton Manning doing something. Yeah, at the time we were talking about Peyton Manning, you know, I think from general manager to team president, and it seems like that he could not, I don't think he wants to be anywhere near this general vicinity right now. I would guess, I don't know that to be true, but I would guess. My man has a full embrace on Denver and the Broncos and what's going on there. So it seems like, and you would understand because you would probably feel the same way if you were cut or fired by an organization. And while you know, your great moments were with him, you know, growing up, winning a Super Bowl, bringing the first big-time win, especially in football, to the city of Indianapolis since 1984. Since the transition. And then on a March afternoon, you are cut loose. So you can kind of understand that if you have any hard feelings, it'll be hard to get over those hard feelings, even with the statue and all that. So I'm assuming that, yeah, that ship, if it were ever real, had long ago sailed. But I wrote that at the top of this, Peyton Manning. Because everybody loves Peyton Manning. Everybody believes in Peyton Manning. And the problem that they have right now is nobody believes in a damn thing that they're doing. Nobody. And there's a reason behind it. There's evidence not to believe it. When you believe in whatever Peyton Manning does, he's going to get it done. And again, I'm not advocating him coming here. I'm just giving you an example of where this organization is right now, where the operation is right now. Nobody believes anything they do or they say. And it is up to you in some form or fashion to change that message. And going back to Sunday night, when you decide to stay the course on this, that is far from what is necessary. I'm not suggesting you make your fan base those that pick and choose how you operate. What I am suggesting is that you identify the issue and you do something about it. And you just don't act within a bubble of convenience. And that is what has transpired here. And that's what you're going to hear at 9 a.m. coming up tomorrow morning. You're going to hear a lot of the same old, same old. Is there anything that Chris Ballard's going to say tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. that's going to change your mind 1 ounce? The only thing you can do is win, and win consistently. And this team does not give you any hope that that's possible. Again, you have not identified the issue. And if you have swept the issue under the rug. And it seems like everybody out there is trying to tell those decision makers, whether it's Jim Irsay or anybody else, what is going wrong. What's the issue over the years, what the issue has been. And in 2022, Jim was forthright about identifying it and brought in somebody that he trusted. And hell, I called that a clown show. It wasn't. It was being proactive and addressing serious issues. And what you're doing this year is not. We can discuss that at 239-1070 if you so desire. See how I worked that open? I worked that open to start with some positivity and the hoopage around here right now, which is nice. Greg Rakestraw is going to join us coming up at the bottom of the hour. Tony East, I'm going to ask him a couple of things regarding how the Pacers move forward and approach the trade deadline. There are a lot of rumors regarding Neesmith and interest and Cam Johnson and interest. I want to try to separate, and he's the best dude to do that around here, to separate what is logical thinking and what is just what we normally deal with, an absolute pipe dream of crap that will never happen. Tony East about that, and Tony East about the numbers and as to why the Pacers have been recently much better on the road and just much better altogether, and how much of that so-called glue comes in the form of Andrew Nembhard. No matter what he does, no matter what he scores, no matter his output, his level of importance in terms of winning, my God, we all need somebody like that. Is he identified as that for the Pacers? Tony East going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. More Colts conversation for you. Busy week, but on a Tuesday, I'm going to leave it up to you, and I've got more for you as well. We're all busy around here. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. We have stuff to give away. Brian Regan tickets for Clues Hall. Going to be a funny show. The Indy Ignite and their inaugural season happens on Saturday. And, in fact, I'm going to be there before I do the JMV Takeover. I am going to be at the new Fishers Event Center. I have not seen it, but I have heard incredible stories. But we're talking volleyball and a big deal. I cannot wait to see you guys all up there. With that, we got a giveaway for you later on this week. So I'm going to go up there early on Saturday and then hang out. I want to take a bit of a tour of the Fishers Event Center, for one. But the Ignite on the scene. I'll explain that. I'm going to give that away later on this week. Not today, right? Later on this week, right? We'll talk it up this week. I hope I see everybody out there. Here's kind of the bummer. Like, this has an influence on me, too. Like, all of a sudden, I go from Thursday and Friday, and we're out, and we've got the beverages flowing to in studio with James. So no longer do I have incredible Larceny Bourbon Ginger Ale cocktails or Ice Cold Bud Light. I've got James and his man bun now, which, as much as I like James, there is just no real comparison right there. And if the Colts were winning, then there'd be another week of that. If the Colts were winning, another week after that. So I am reintroduced to James and his 5 days a week man bun without a cocktail or without an ice cold Bud Light. See, this has a massive effect on me too, brother.
I mean, you do have a lot of alcohol in your office, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, Hammer and Nigel and I partake. We have our pre-shows. Like Hammer and Nigel are across the hall. They talk about news and politics, and I don't jack with that, as you well know. But we have meetings, I don't know, about 2:30, 2:25, something like that, in an office down the hall. And we discuss what's going to happen on our shows. It's always a hell of a time. But, yeah, we do have that. It's not the same, though, James. Nothing against your man bun. Not the same. So it does have a massive effect on me, too.
You really don't like the man bun, do you?
I think you should cut it off.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about cutting it off?
I've thought about trimming it.
People tell me the same thing. Hell, I cut my own hair. It's either Debbie at Great Clips down in Greenwood or me.
I've thought about trimming it. At this point, it's just laziness.
JMV, ahead of tomorrow's press conference, what am I missing? Who's got this Chris Ballard bingo card? I have never been introduced to these bingo cards. I used to love bingo. My town of Owensburg had every other week bingo in the volunteer firehouse, and it was awesome. Hot dogs and Cokes, and they had that, remember the old school bingo ball cage that you would crank, and the balls would roll around, and you didn't have the markers and the sheets you throw away. You had actual bingo cards to where you had spaces in which you would slide over across a number window when you got that particular number. It was glorious. Those days are the days I miss. I'll introduce you to the Ballard bingo card that Boiler Up just sent me a moment ago. That and more. Greg Rakestraw on the other side. Tony East as well. Stuff to give away. Plenty of reason for you to hang. And Chris Ballard, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, his press conference. That's something we'll carry for you during Sweebo in the morning right here on The Fan. 93.5 and 107.5. The stream, the app, HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member today at AAA.com. Back with you next.
JMV.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, thank you, Tim Martin. That's very nice. The amount of weight you've lost is awesome. 65, I think that's where I am right now. 63, 65, something like that. I do feel good, though. I was thinking about a year ago, I felt awful, and we joked about it all the time. It was like a big joke around here. Hey, you feel awful. You look awful, too. Great. Now, I feel much better. Thank you guys for that, too. My friend Thomas at Premier Weight Loss, and then you get busy on concentrating on a change in protocol and modifying things, and that's exactly what we did right there. But a shout-out to Premier. If you want to start the new year off like that, Premier Weight Loss, just let me know. And I will Pied Piper you up to the Northside location or to Fisher's and have you talk to Thomas, man, because it works. Little hoopage for me later on tonight as well. Feeling good about that. It is a bummer, though. I know we still have football. I know Notre Dame is still a part of it, too, collegiately. I know we still have the NFL wild card coming up this weekend, but without the Colts, even if you're bummed or angered about the situation, it is a noticeable absence, especially going into the offseason, into the week number one without it. And joining us to talk about that and then some is Greg Rakestraw, post-game show host, and he does basically everything play-by-play around here. It is kind of a weird feeling, is it? Because so quickly things just absolutely end. So abruptly it is over, and you're kind of left to deal with it.
That is quite true. Maybe I've got some good news to deliver to you. Do you know who's following you on the air tonight on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan?
Tell me all about it.
That'd be me as the host of On the Horizon. So it's kind of an every other week show now, talking all things Horizon League. So I am the post-game show host yet again, just this time for the ride with JMV.
What's the, besides basketball, for example, I think we'd all jump to that, the most interesting sport in the Horizon League? What's the most popular / interesting?
I would say the best from top to bottom quality sport in the league is probably women's basketball. Now, Purdue-Fort Wayne is on quite the run so far this year. They are 6-0. Last year, Cleveland State and Green Bay were both kind of top 50 RPI teams a season ago. That may not be the case this year. The single best program historically in the Horizon League is the Milwaukee women's soccer program, who won their Horizon League semifinal this year 7-0 and reached the NCAA tournament yet again. But in terms of the radio show that runs from parts of December until the opening night of the Horizon League tournament at the Corteva Coliseum at the Indiana State Fairgrounds on March 10th, we focus strictly on men's and women's basketball.
It's Greg Rakestraw right there with an update. 6 o'clock right after me. Greg is going to be here with that show. I know we don't talk often. We talk more like high school and college, but go ahead and put a bow as the post-game show host, you and Bill Brooks, on this Colt season. And then so far, this path of which they have decided now to take in the offseason, at least what we know to this point.
Well, to wrap up the season, to be disappointing. You know, I thought the line of demarcations, even last year, you're disappointed with the end, but you go, my goodness, without your rookie quarterback, you had a 5-win improvement. You were a play or two away from being a playoff team and hosting a playoff game. While the end was disappointing, you felt great about the direction in which, the program was heading. You don't have that same feeling after this year. Even with the fact that they won 8 games, again, you get the feeling a lot of that was just because there was a lot of bad in the AFC, and the Colts played most of it. They beat one playoff team this year, and that being Pittsburgh, who isn't exactly heading into the postseason, riding high. And so disappointment of the season. I think from those on the outside looking in, maybe you're surprised there's not more changes. For those of us that kind of follow the team on a regular basis, you kind of thought this was the path in which they would take. So is this truly feet to the fire time for everybody involved? Are you at a blow-it-up point at the end of next year if things don't go well? Only time will tell. But I think the other big turning point, and we'll learn about this over the next few weeks and months as well, is the fan base to a point where they're about to vote with their wallets, where they're going to say, you know what, we've been screaming for change and it wasn't delivered. Maybe we're going to go in a different direction. And that's the other story they'll be playing out over these next few weeks and months.
Here's my opinion, and I think it's an educated opinion, sitting my ass in here or someplace else and talking to people and getting feedback 5 days a week. We're really 7 days a week when it comes down to it because we are our window to the world here. But there is rarely, if ever, going to be anytime soon anything this organization does or says that most of the fan base will any longer believe in. And to me, you could not be more on deck of complete and total apathy than me making that statement. And I'm hoping everybody over there hears it, because when you look in the mirror, if you're the Colts, that's what you should see in the reflection. Not, well, this is how it's going to be. It's finally going to work in year 9. Or we believe in a quarterback that hasn't, at all looked to any level of quarterback in the NFL. You really need to look and advise on the reality that's in the reflection and not try to do it with hope, because you've tried to pass that along before. It hasn't worked. And it is really working in the form of on a deaf ear now with what I have witnessed with this fan base. And the only way to get back from it is winning. But I think at the outset of the season, I think you're going to see a lot of people that, compared to the past, are not going to be on board with this product one more time.
It's a fair statement to make. And I would say this, words tomorrow morning, words in and around your favorite event, the NFL Combine.
Yeah.
Words around the draft, words around free agency. They'll be said. I'm not sure it matters. We'll see if actions change in terms of aggressiveness other than your own free agents. We'll see if kind of positions that have been neglected are addressed in terms of the NFL draft. But it's all window dressing until games start to matter, until that first weekend after Labor Day. And so the nice way of putting it is I think Colts fans will take a wait-and-see approach. And, again, that's being kind about it.
Yeah, that's tough. You put yourself in a tough spot. For example, Greg, when Chris gets out there tomorrow at 9 a.m. and everybody's just kind of rolling their eyes and shaking their head. That's what you're going to be dealing with. And it's not just, a fraction or a percentage. And, again, I feel pretty comfortable in advising in this category. It is a majority of Colts fans that feel that way right now. And it's a tough place to be, I think, with an organization that has floundered in the fashion in which they have the last 4 years and really going back the last 6.
I would agree with that. And I would also add this. There's still a passionate core here, but you're also in a place where I'm not sure there's much relevance right now to the Indianapolis Colts, the NFL at large. They are one of the least thought about franchise in the National Football League, and that's a problem too.
Yeah, that's yes. Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Again, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Chris Ballard with the media. We'll cover that right here on The Fan during the Sweebo in the Morning Sports Talk program. I mentioned this regarding IU and Purdue a little bit earlier. Makes you wonder, with basically 2 games without Malik Renew, if they're better with that look, offensively, flow-wise especially. And, again, he is a terrific player, but without 2 bigs, it seems like they have moved around offensively, especially a lot better. And at what point in time do you think Purdue really gets into gear in the post-Edey version of this team? Or is this something where they're going to be capable of keeping their head above water but never really getting over it in the Big Ten? I will say this. I think the Big Ten is wide-ass open, so I'm not too worried about that. And I do think Purdue's made some strides, but you just kind of wonder, I guess, where their ceiling is, too, with that group.
Correct. I would say this. I think Purdue's pretty simple. Purdue's a good team, not a great team. And, again, Braden Smith's a heck of a college basketball player. He's going to go down as a great Boilermaker. Where does he rank among the best players nationally? Well, up there, but not as, not the way their bigs have been when they have had this great run, over the course of the last few years. That's not to bag on Braden at all. It's just he is their best player, but does he give you the level of fits that, say, a Zach Edey does? No. It's just a different team. It's a very good team. It's one that if they get hot can do some special things in March, but that would be a surprise, not an expectation like it has been in years gone by. So, again, Purdue's in the Hall of Very Good, not in the Hall of Great this year. In terms of Indiana, again, I think as soon as Renew comes back, I think you'll see kind of go back to that same philosophy. But I'll give it to you. In do I call games at a Big Ten level? No. But do I see teams at a couple, 3 different levels underneath of that? Yes. And hardly anybody plays 2 bigs anymore. Basketball is a 5-out or a 4-out, 1-in game at multiple levels. What IU has done with kind of the double bigs is typically not what most teams are playing. So this has kind of forced them into a more modern basketball, and not surprisingly, the offenses look better because of it. But again, my expectation would be is that whenever Malik is healthy, they'll kind of go back to the way they have played previously.
It's Greg Rakestraw talking a little college hoop on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Does Butler ever find it again to the level on which everybody really fell in love with Butler? Because this season has certainly been a slog, and it is going to end up being, I think, one of the worst that we have seen in a while around here. Butler, and then give me a little thumbnail sketch of what you think about my Sycamores and Matt Graves to this point in their season over at Terre Haute.
Well, first of all, from the Sycamore standpoint, I want to say pleasantly surprised, but that was a heck of a rebuilding effort that Matt was asked to do. And are they as good as last year's team? No. But I think are they far better than most had anticipated they would be? Yes. Now, the one time I have seen them with my own eyes, it's not exactly fair because they were playing a bunch of guys that work at CVS and Walgreens a few years from now because they were playing the artist formerly known as St. Louis College of Pharmacy. So probably not the best comparison, but they had guys that looked the part. Samaj Teal is a really good basketball player. I love the skill set the Harding kid has. Again, they are not last year's team, but they're probably a lot closer to it than people thought they would when you basically had to rebuild from the ground up when that team scattered to the 4 wins after the success they had last year and after Josh Schertz moved on to St. Louis University. As far as Butler is concerned, every year we get further away from not just what Brad Stevens accomplished, but frankly what Chris Holtmann did to make them an upper half program in the Big East virtually every year. You should appreciate it because it shows how truly difficult it was. There's a lot of folks, though, that I will hear, whether it's social media, casual conversation, whatever. And frankly, Butler, I think, has largely disappeared from the casual conversation for most sports fans in the area for a multitude of different reasons. But the biggest one of them is just looking at winning. But you'll hear them say, hey, they can't compete at that level and be at that level. Well, I guarantee you they're not leaving the Big East anytime soon. They are still in a much better place as an academic institution and an athletic program being in the Big East and having to struggle to compete than they would be if they were in the Atlantic 10 or in a different league. And so they're going to stay in the Big East. Big East ain't going to kick them out any point in time soon. They have to find a way to, again, attract better players and kind of recapture some market share here in Indianapolis. And if the current group can't do it, then maybe there might be a change at some point in time coming down the road for the Bulldogs.
Greg's in studio here tonight at 6 o'clock, correct?
Well, as far as the radio listeners know, I'm in studio at 6 o'clock, yes, because magically I have to be at North Central for high school hoops at 7:30 for Hamilton Southeastern and North Central on my Indy TV 23, because, yes, North Central did not go to school today, but they're still playing a basketball game tonight, and for that there is much rejoicing.
Damn straight, that's how it should be, Greg. That's how
we'll be there at 6 o'clock.
I lived in a world back in the day where they weren't going to allow you to play basketball when you missed a day of school because of weather, and that was complete BS.
You do, I believe, if I remember right, your senior year has the distinction of being the last year you have to make up snow days. Is that correct?
You're correct.
You lived in the good times.
We lived in a good time, man. I always say this. In 1978, 77, 78, I missed 3 weeks of school. I think almost a month of school.
Right.
And never had to make it up. It was beautiful.
That was the legend that was told. That was my pre-kindergarten days back then, John. That's
I loved
slight
it.
difference age between the two of us. But yes, the running total was at Lanesville a month of missed school because of the blizzard of 78.
Nothing more grand than getting a snow day and still playing a basketball game scheduled later that night. That's glorious.
The closest thing I came to was my senior year. We missed an entire week for the blizzard of 94 when the coldest recorded temperature ever in the state of Indiana hit New Whiteland in January of 94. They basically called school for us Wednesday of that week, but we were also playing North Harrison on Friday night. We hadn't beaten North Harrison in 12 years. We were really good, and they were god-awful. And by God, we would have called the National Guard to play that game, and we did. I mean, one in their building for the first time in like over a decade. So sometimes, exceptions to those rules were made back in the day.
It's Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Glory days, as Bruce Springsteen famously did in a song in 1984, my brother. I appreciate you.
See you, pal.
It's Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I don't always trust school administrators because there's a lot of jackassery, just like anything else, but a lot of jackassery working there. But when our administrator said, yeah, you know what, we can't go to school today, but you got to play that game later on tonight in Shoals, I said, hell yeah. That's what I'm ready to go off. Ignite the fuse on the ticking stick of dynamite. Well, ticking. On the dynamite that's about ready to blast and do 28 points against the Jug Rocks, baby. Glory days indeed. Quick break, James will come back. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Diablo sandwich of Dr. Pepper. Make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And the Raiders just canned Antonio Pierce. 4-13 in one season with the Las Vegas Raiders. That according to ESPN. Earlier today, you talk about somebody being proactive after 2 years. Ran Carthon gets Ron Carthon, general manager of the Titans. Now, Brian Callahan will remain as the head coach down there. But Ran Carthon done. What, 2 years, I think is what he got right there? Number 1 pick overall, the 2025 draft. That has probably been, if we're going to be honest, the biggest surprise so far. Would be that decision. Courtney's at 239-1070 before the top of the hour break. Hello, Courtney.
Hey, John. It's good to hear you again. It's been a minute.
Right back at you. Thanks for the call.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Man, I was just going to add a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, who is your idea of a new defensive coordinator for the Colts?
Well, Salo would be the absolute best, but it appears he's going to go back to San Fran. For me, because that's like a change in a lot of things right there. So that's where I would start. I've always liked this guy, and I don't think he's going to have any availability either. But I've always loved Wink Martindale, who's the defensive coordinator at Michigan, who was formerly a defensive coordinator in Baltimore. I think, has John Pagano, Chuck's brother, been mentioned too, I believe, in the past? I think he's been kind of thrown in there. But Sala would, I think, be at the top of anybody's list, but he may end up being unavailable. At least that's what people are talking up.
Right. And also, man, I wish you could. I know high school basketball season is up, and I usually go to the games. I support Anderson High School.
Sure.
My alma mater. Go Indians. They're about to play the tournament tonight against Alexandria, and I wish you could come up there Friday to see them in the championship because they're going to be playing Robert Liberty Christian. They played them before, and it was a really good game, really aggressive, and they was playing really good ball, and
How's the high school hoop in that area compare? And I know that there's probably not a lot of comparison to when the glory days happened up there, but how is high school basketball doing up there right now?
I was doing pretty good. We've been having this coach. His name is Don Bowen. Shout out to him. He have kind of brought the Anderson basketball, spirit up to reach not as high as it was back in the day, but still, he still brought it back up. And they got a good team this year. They're very long and linky. Damian King's he's a really good player, really good. And Javon Warfield also is really nice. So. And they got this center from Pike. His name is Titus Hunter. So he's kind of like a rebounder, defensive type of guy. So, but they're pretty neat, decent. And then the coach's son, he's a freshman. He's like one of the top ranked freshmen in the state. So he's playing really good. He's about 6'4".
Well, good, man. I tell you what, Courtney, keep me updated on that hoop going on high school wise up in Anderson, and maybe we'll make it up there one of these days and hit the casino.
I'm not gambling myself, but
no, we don't have to gamble. We can have a damn cocktail up in there. We can do that.
I ain't a drinker either. But
all right, well, you can have a soft drink.
Okay.
Very versatile, Courtney, man. I'm versatile. It's good.
I know. It's good. But it's nice talking to you, John.
I'm back at you, buddy. Thank you, Courtney. Right. Yeah, a little Anderson update on the high school hoop. I love talking high school hoop. NBA is the direction we're going next. Tony East going to join us about a lot of things and the options the Pacers may or may not have as you approach the NBA trade deadline next month. Tony East about that and success on the road with this team recently. That's next.
By Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries.
It's quite pungent. It stings the nostrils.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Chris Ballard with the media tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Coverage right here with KB and Andy, the morning wake-up call. Pacers a winner last night. There's one subject matter we can talk about because the Pacers recently playing certainly a hell of a lot more as to the way we thought they were going to play. 19-18 overall last night, 113-99 over Brooklyn. Now, it was not picturesque by any stretch of the imagination, but it was sure as hell a lot better than back early December. Remember on the 4th and how they looked on the road at Brooklyn, losing by 9, got down big time in the 20s, I think, tried to work their way back, lost by 9. Now, the product that we see right now, and in particular the road product, has been a hell of a lot better. And joining us to talk about that, and as we approach the trade deadline as well, Tony East, who normally joins us, who has all the insight that's necessary for you. The Next Hoops, Forbes Sports, WTHR.com, Locked On Pacers, and more is on the Indy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And last time out, dropped an S-bomb on the show, which was awesome too. How you doing, Tony?
I'm good. I just watched a G League game that had like a dozen former NBA players in it. It was very fun.
That's nice. How many people actually attend those G League games?
It's tough when it's at 12:30 in the middle of a Tuesday when everybody's working for people to get down there, but like 150, I would say. I mean, bang for your buck, talent to price ratio for a basketball game, it is literally the best you can get.
I saw Obi was there with his daughter. Is it common that when they have the opportunity that Pacer players attend those games?
Yeah, it works out well for them all today that, you know, they got back last night. They don't play till tomorrow. So Obi was there. Thomas Bryant was there, several coaches, exec scouts. And that's going to be the way it goes when Johnny Furphy played his first G League game, right? Like the hope was that he could play a bunch for them. They've been needed with the Pacers. But, yeah, he played. All the two-way guys played. It's a good opportunity for those guys to support their teammates and for the team to actually evaluate those guys they drafted for once.
You brought up Thomas Bryant. How many games deep is he now, 12?
Yeah, ish. I don't remember the
somewhere in
exact
that
number.
neighborhood. Well, listen, I think that he has fit in perfectly with this group, both on and off the floor, to address what is necessary, certainly right now, but also just mixing in with the personality of this group.
Oh, yeah.
I just, the energy that he shows, the enthusiasm, I mean, all that we knew that entailed Thomas Bryant, it has been, to me, a perfect fit for this team.
I agree. Having a quality backup center, I mean, you know it's important, but, like, when you go a month and a half without having one as a team, you really see how important it is, right? You know, they were really trying their best with Obi there and Moses Brown sometimes, and Enrique Freeman's a rookie. He tries really hard, but, like, they needed a 6'10" plus guy to play down there. And Thomas Bryant, you know, when they got him, the first thing I thought about was like, oh yeah, he can shoot a little bit. Like maybe he'll kind of give them what Sticks gave them last year, but worse. And he'll be fine. He's played well, but what's just made him matter to me is that he's big and he gets some rebounds, man. Like he just battles down low with other bigs in a way that they were kind of lacking. And, you know, like last night when Daron Sharp comes in and he changes the game with a bunch of offensive rebounds, here comes Thomas Bryant. He's clearing out Daron Sharp. He's fighting down low, and he can shoot it a little. He did last night, but just that level of like oomph and power has been kind of missing, and they got it from him, and he's played well, right? I don't think his stats look amazing, but I think he's given them exactly what they need from the position that he's playing. And yeah, on the bench, I mean, you can see the personality fit. He's going to take you've seen it. Like he's going to take somebody out with one of these punches when he's celebrating. He's swinging his arms like crazy, but. You know, I do wonder how contagious that is, especially if there's a trade element of like, well, I don't want to be the guy that Thomas Bryant thinks is, you know, the personality suck on the bench. So
yeah,
he's fitting well. He's added quite a bit to this team.
It's Tony East on the Indy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So will we reflect back on the season and call the turning point and the reason why the Pacers are where they are right now and playing better? And obviously, if this continues to the level in which we expected this season, is this all because of the way they floundered in that in-season Emirates Cup tournament?
It honestly did help them this year, didn't it, right? Because a lot of stuff really overlapped, like right that week or like that 5-day stretch where they got 4 days of practice right after they traded or right before they traded for Thomas Bryant, but like knew he was coming. They really needed the practice time because of how hurt they were. They just had gotten Andrew Nemhard back to the point that he was actually playing full games, not just the first half. Ben Shepherd right around the corner was his return, right? And they had just had that. I know this sounds stupid to use as a positive point, but they just had that embarrassing loss to Charlotte, like by far their low point of the season, I think. You know, a bunch of guys were out for the Hornets, and they still lost at home. And that had to be a wake-up call of like, man, we can't just like someday fix this. Like something's actually going to have to happen. And since then, they haven't defended like well, but they've defended much better, and they've gotten healthier, and Halliburton's played a lot better. They look, like you said in the come-in, like way more like the team from last year, and they still have work to do to get totally there. They're only one game over 500, but so many things came together right then. And then on the other side of those two games, they had 3 more practice days, right, to work in Thomas Bryant and get all that stuff up to speed. I think that time where they played 2 games in, let's say, 10, 11 days really transformed everything for them to be back to where they were last year, at least back to the team they wanted to be. And, of course, it's not a win for your season when you're just as good as last year. You'd want to be better, right? But that's a huge step forward for them, given how terrible they started this year. And I totally agree that for the opposite reason of last year, the in-season tournament, once again, turning things around for the Indiana Pacers.
No matter the stat line for Andrew Nemhard,
oh my gosh,
how much he seems to have so much influence, regardless of, again, what his stat line may suggest, may dictate, may actually just simply put, tell you. He seems he's as important as anybody with the whole winning in mind with this group, with this team. Am I overstating this too much?
No, I think you're understating it, if anything. I mean, it's not a coincidence to me that their first win, right? They were, what were they, 9-14? He plays into the second half for the first time after coming back from injury in Chicago. They look awesome, right? They smoke the Bulls. And they've been great ever since then with 1 bad loss and then 2, like, totally expected OKC Boston losses, right? He defends the other team's best player every game. He is a good passer. He takes pressure off of Tyrese Halliburton. A lot of games he's actually been running the show and scoring. I mean, everything they would need, like another player that they were missing when they were playing bad to do, he can do. And he brings it every night. Like, the thing that stands out the most is how good the starting 5 has been with him on the floor, right? Not that Quentin Jackson didn't have his moments or, like, you know, guys have filled in okay as the 5th starter this year, but that group with him, Mathurin, Halliburton, Siakam, and Turner has just crushed opponents in this last month or so. I think their defensive rating would be like 3rd or 4th in the league if they were, you know, playing that way for 48 minutes, and they can't play a whole lineup for 48 minutes, but they really can guard with that 5 on the floor, and he's the best defender of that group. You know, it's so hard to really fathom how a guy whose stats, none of his individual stats like jump off the page, right? But he's very clearly so helpful to make everyone else play the way they want to, or play their best role, or just play their best style. And ever since he's come back, they've been huge. And his on-off numbers are crazy. Like, they're like 7 or 8 points per 100 possessions better when he's out there. Nobody else is even close to that this year. He is unbelievably important for how they play and how well they play, and you've really seen that since he returned.
So does it make people that were skeptical about, you know, his extension and wondering whether or not he and Halliburton could coexist in the lineup together if they had too much, does that whole point, that whole angle look silly to you now?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it in a lot of places. I'm not sure if I did with you, just because in the summer Pacers aren't as talked about as much, but if that was the max they could pay him on an extension for that number of years, I said in a lot of places, like, if I was advising Andrew Nemhard, I would say, hey, don't take this, right? Like, I think he could have got more if he was truly open market, just as like he could be a lead point guard somewhere. But I think he's that level of good, or that level of impactful, certainly. And he's on a minimum this year, and then it kicks in next year. So even better when the deal actually starts, in theory, than he is right now. Like, I think that's a great contract, and like half of the premise of the Pacers is find players who fit with Siakam and Halliburton for the next 4 years. Okay, he's perfect at that, right? He does everything you'd in theory need another guard to do next to those 2 players. Like, that is an awesome contract that I think will only get better, and you're seeing these last couple of weeks why the second they could do that, the day it became legal, they did it, because he's very good.
Yeah, Tony East talking Pacers Bulls at the Fieldhouse tomorrow night. Pacers Golden State and Trace Jackson Davis coming up on Friday night as well. So an opportunity for the team that's been on the road the most so far this season to make a little headway at home coming up in the next two games. Tony's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So what is it that is so profoundly different here in the last more than handful of games regarding Tyrese Halliburton? What have you noticed?
It's hard to really say. Like, if you ask him, he'll say, hey, the shots are going in, and that's like it. And that is certainly part of it. You know, early in the season, he couldn't make a three to save his life, and so he was kind of playing a little more tight, and there was more passing. And I think what always has made him so good is, like, he could really feel out a situation very quickly, not even just in basketball, but just, like, as a person, and figure out what is required of him in terms of that interaction or in terms of that basketball game. That's why some games he'll have, like, 15 and 8 and everybody will kill him. And I'm like, the Pacers just scored 130 points. Like, who cares what Tyrese Halliburton did? But, you know, he's had a few stinkers in the last month, but all the rest of his games have looked really good. And I think a lot of it is he's just more naturally comfortable with what he needs to do on a game-to-game basis, whereas early in the season he might have been overthinking it a bit or feeling a little bogged down from basketball, right? He said it felt like a job, and he had 2 straight summers with the USA, and everybody speculated he was hurt. He just looked bad. When the shots are looking good, nobody's questioning if he's hurt or not, right? And so a big thing for him, to me, has been taking more threes. I know that sounds stupid because he wasn't making them early in the year, but the Pacers in general have done a much better job generating them, getting the ball into the paint. Not even just him, Nembhard, the bigs, and then splashing it out to their shooters, and they've been making them, and he's been a huge part of that. But you know, he takes 10, 11, 12 some games, and when he's doing that, he's either feeling it or he knows he can get them up that much, and he's a good enough shooter to do that. You know, I think a lot of stuff has changed for him, but the way he's feeling mentally and the way the shots are falling for him, I think just kind of has snowballed into a bunch of momentum. He looks really great.
It's Tony East counted up to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So Aaron Nesmith, I'm assuming, is coming up here fairly quickly on the horizon. And with a lot of the Pacer positivity, there have been some mention of things that they may end up doing, maybe trying to add pieces, maybe trying to ensure that they have room to extend Miles Turner coming up after the season, as I'm assuming they'll want to do. Where are they right now in all of this, and how much maneuverability might they have, if any whatsoever, as we get closer and closer to the February trade deadline?
Yeah, that's their trickiest part. It's going to be how flexible or maneuverability, like you said, how much they really have, because they are so close to the luxury tax, frighteningly close. And I get it. Every fan will say the same thing. They should say this. Well, just pay it. They get the best team possible every year. Like, that's great and dandy. If they could, they would. But, you know, if you're not going to go into the tax, they can't take back more money in a trade, and they have a really big gap between their second highest paid player, which is one of their max stars, and their third highest paid player, which is Turner, which makes it really hard for them to acquire somebody in that mid-salary range via trade. They'd have to give up like 2 rotation players or like a rotation player and a lottery pick. It's just like really hard to figure out the right value for a lot of the stuff they're going to have to do. That doesn't mean they can't or won't make a trade. There's lots of stuff that might make sense for them to do, but the other tricky part is, you know, they're one game over 500. Like, what should they actually be wanting to do? So I think their financial reality now makes it hard to see what this year could look like. But, you know, when they look ahead to Turner, like, the cap's going to go up 10% next year, and, you know, Nembhard's extension kicks in, but they'll have a little bit more ways to be flexible and maneuverable in the offseason, but it's not fun to float through a season with, you know, the same team as the year before, and then if you have a worse result, it all feels way different, right? So they have to figure out how to balance their kind of lack of flexibility with, you know, maybe goals of getting a little better and adding flexibility in the summer. That's all very hard to do in practice. I think they'll have to kind of strategize what's the most important to them, because they specifically chose this financial situation because of what their team was last year, right? Certainly it made sense to keep the guys they did and give out the contracts they have. But now they're in a spot where it's like, okay, this is our team. We've got to figure out what it is. And it's really hard for them to kind of change it around without some very specific players coming back.
Well, and I've seen, and I'm sure you have as well, you know, these trade rumors and things that have been lobbed out there regarding Cam Johnson, for example.
Yeah.
And while I think he'd be a really nice piece in addition, you know, some of these suggestions would be, you know, Obi and Nesmith, and I forget, I think Furphy was also involved in a lot of these. Is that basically what it would take to acquire somebody the magnitude of a Cam Johnson?
Yeah, here's the thing. How much better than Nesmith is Cam Johnson, right?
Yeah,
like, that's what every time I see this fake trade, I'm like, wait, what?
Man, I was going to ask, do you have to see Neesmith's return and his impact on this team before you even contemplate anything?
If what the Pacers want from a player they're trading for is Cam Johnson, which is a movement shooter who can kind of defend, how about Aaron Neesmith, who's on their team already, right? Cam Johnson's taller and a little bit better of a shooter. Like, I get why he's good and why the Pacers would want him, but how much of an improvement actually is that? And Neesmith is definitely a better defender. I don't remember people remember the Suns when they made their finals run a couple years ago with Cam Johnson on that team. A lot of teams were picking on Cam Johnson on defense in that playoff run, and that was a few years ago, but that still happened, right? So I get why they would want him. I get why any team would want Cam Johnson. He's 6'9". He can make threes. He'd probably start on all 30 teams in the NBA. It's just if it requires Neesmith and another salary and an asset or two, I'm like, I don't think that's enough improvement from what I have if I'm the Pacers to do that. But maybe they have different goals than me. Maybe their player evaluation is different than mine. But I've always been very confused by those valuations of those fake trades that come up. It just feels like people really don't understand what Aaron Neesmith can do.
Yeah. I'm going to be curious how they handle that, but you had mentioned, starter on nearly every team in Cam Johnson. So that got me thinking about this lineup. When Neesmith does return, will he take a prominent role off the bench or reassume that role as a starter? And I look at Benedict Mathurin as a dude that would want to start and not come off the bench. And again, I have nothing other than just my guess, educated opinion on it. How would he feel about coming off the bench again, and what tack do you think this coaching staff and Rick Carlisle will take as far as the return of Neesmith and then the time afterwards once he gets reacclimated?
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting is that reacclimation, right? Nembhard came back, and he was starting right away, but he was only playing 2 quarters. And then, Halliburton did that last year, but he didn't start that one game, so he could play in the 4th quarter. It was all just goofy. So my guess with Neesmith is that when he comes back, he'll not be starting because, like we mentioned earlier, we were talking about Nembhard's return and how the teams are playing better. Their current starting 5 looks awesome, right? They're defending really well. They're actually crushing teams when that group of 5 is on the floor. So at no fault of Neesmith, like Mathurin has really worked hard these last couple of weeks and months to become what that starting 5 needs, which is, he's defending better. He's really good on the glass. He's making quicker decisions. All the stuff that we've talked about for years with him as being important for him to grow into the player that would be the best blend of what Ben Mathurin is and what the Pacers need. And if that group keeps defending well, I don't know why they would want to take Ben Mathurin out of that lineup, right? He's played very well, and he's a good player. But they also know that that same lineup with Neesmith is really good, and they know that the second unit with Ben Mathurin last year was really good, right? It worked well. Like, they do have ample evidence to say, yeah, they should start Neesmith again at some point. So my guess would be that when Neesmith returns, he will not start right away. I mean, they got to figure out who they're not going to play at all, right? Like, Jarris has been playing better. Do they really want to take him completely out of the rotation? Do they want to take Ben Shepherd out of the rotation? We talked about Thomas Bryant playing better. Do they want to take him out? Like, how are they going to even do this with the roster that they have? I think that's an answer they'll have to figure out. But, it would feel weird for Aaron Neesmith to never start again, right? He was a very good fit in that starting group, but it also would be hard for me to see them saying, oh, we got to completely take this away. It's been working so well. So it's going to be, I think, maybe the most interesting plot line coming up, when Neesmith returns, is how they figure that out and what it says about their priorities with this group and these lineups, because that'll tell us a lot about what their feeling is on these players and how they wish to proceed. But I'm very high on Aaron Neesmith, but I've also really liked what Ben Mathurin's done the last couple of weeks. I don't know how the Pacers will handle it truly, because I don't think they can do anything wrong, but it does signal a lot about what they think of everything.
I'm curious, too, the reaction with Mathurin, if he were to go back to the bench. He just kind of, to me, seems like a dude that really wouldn't dig that very much. And which one of the two you think would have more offensive success or would be more of a go-to? You would think Mathurin, with a group that was in there led by T.J. McConnell. Looks like those two guys have some pretty strong relatability and synergy together. Might that work off the bench as far as scoring and pace is concerned, with two guys that clearly are very fond of playing on the floor and productive with one another?
Yeah, and if Mathurin cares about starting, that certainly is another hurdle that would prop up, right? Because in theory, like, the stuff he's the absolute best at, he could do a little bit more with the second unit, right? I made that argument last year when they started him early in the season and then they switched things up. It's like people were really saying, oh, is this good for Mather? I'm like, well, he can play more like the Ben Mathurin we know off the bench than with the starters, whereas with the starters, it's way more about filling a certain role between Siakam and Halliburton, right? And he's gotten way better at that stuff the last couple of weeks, but if starting is a big source of pride for him as he, again, keeps trying to blend his game with what the Pacers are and what he needs to be for that team, then he'll have to keep doing that stuff. And if he switches to a different role, then he has to play a little differently. He'll have to adapt to that. So that is certainly a hurdle they'll have to consider because they started them last year to start the season. They've started them this year a lot. Eventually, if you keep saying he shouldn't be a starter, what does that signal, right? That's something they're going to have to figure out how to handle.
All right. So are they absolutely in extending Miles when it's time to do so? Is there any thought whatsoever that this won't or may not take place at some point further down the road, Tony?
They should be all in on it. I mean, not mostly because, it's hard to explain NBA rules of cap stuff sometimes, but they can either sign Miles Turner, who's worth, $20 to $25 million a year, maybe even more than that, or they could sign a player worth, like $14 million. Like that's a huge gap in ability. There's no other way for them to get a center as good as Miles Turner in free agency without making a trade, but they could get Miles Turner without trading anything, right? So they should be from purely a perspective of the value of the stuff that they have, be really willing to keep him and try to do what they can to pay him, but it might require them moving a different contract or figuring out the balance of their team because of what their spending could look like, even though the cap does project to go up quite a bit next year. And that's going to be it. I mean, he's playing well. He's shooting really well this season. He just had another great defensive game in Brooklyn. I think he had 3 blocks and 3 steals. I thought his defense has been better the last couple of weeks after a kind of start for him on that end of the floor. So, we've had this discussion about him a million times. It's just the way it's worked out for him. And he's kind of in that tier of player where he's like really good but not amazing to the point that he'll always kind of be in these discussions about his future. But the Pacers have put themselves in a situation where outside of, someone blowing them away with the trade in the next month, it seems like their best reality is going to be to keep him because they can't replace him any other way and then figure out the money somewhere else.
Hey, really quick before I let you go, what is the value market-wide, you think, from Miles Turner? I guess I should also qualify that as interest market-wide in the NBA for Miles Turner. Where would that be?
Yeah, that kind of center can be valuable, like proven playoff contributor, and when you can shoot and defend, you can play on any team, right? He would start on any team that would be wanting to trade for him. So that's certainly worth a first-round pick, probably more, with depending on what the matching salary is. Because he can't be extended, his value is probably a little lower than his talent ability. Any team he would go to would have the same problem the Pacers have in terms of no contract extension being legal. But I'd imagine he has pretty good value if he were to be made available for some reason. But, a team in the Pacers situation that's trying to win games and make some noise in the playoffs doesn't really look to just trade away a starter without getting something good in return or unless they're getting an upgrade. So I think that's the kind of value they could expect if they were upgrading. And they could call that his value, but it's hard to say. I think their record February 1st will tell us a lot about where they're thinking.
All right, what are you writing about here in the not-so-distant future? The Mad Ants?
Well, I did talk to Ray J. Dennis, their new two-way guy today.
Yeah.
James Johnson got his contract guaranteed today. January 15th is when most players in the NBA can be traded. There's a lot of fun contract reality stuff coming up. I just wrote about what their play against zone defense says about what some of the team's weaknesses are. There's lots of good stuff about the Pacers.
So are you surprised? Are you surprised everybody doesn't zone them all the time?
I think they should be zoned a little bit more often.
Me too.
Honestly,
Yeah.
they do have a shooting issue with that second unit that makes it really easy to zone up against that group. And all the teams basically that see zone the most often in the league either don't take or don't make a lot of threes. The Pacers are in the don't take group this year, right? So it does reveal a little bit of something there. But they've been better against them of late, so I thought it was pretty fun to dive into those numbers. And it's fun covering the Pacers right now. For those of you who've been watching the Colts all year, they had stability with their coach and front office and do not lose games. Well, they do lose a lot of games they shouldn't win, but they also win a lot of games people don't expect them to. So it's very different than what people are used to.
Yeah, I'm just I'm glad that they're back in gear right now, and I want to see this continue. So it'd be great.
Yes, I would agree. It's been fun.
Pleasure, buddy. Tony, I appreciate it as always, man. But go ahead, feel free to cuss anytime you want on here, so it's okay.
I warned him I would not do it today, but we'll see next time how I'm feeling.
Tony, thanks, man.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Tony East on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He did last time out. It's all good, though, man. It happens. Forbes, the next hoops, WTHR.com, Locked On Pacers, Tony East, good with the salary cap and any sort of, I wanted to justify or legitimize, if you will, any of these trade rumors that drop regarding the Pacers. So I think we did a hell of a job at that with Tony East. If you missed any of it, the podcast 1075, thefan.com. Brian Regan tickets to give away a little bit later on. Why you should join me at the brand new Fishers Event Center with the Indy Ignite coming up on Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. It's a huge event. I'll explain coming up. And more on the Colts with Chris Ballard meeting with the media tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. carried live right here on the Fan during the Swebo in the morning show, the morning wake-up call with KB and Andy. 9 a.m. with Chris Ballard right here tomorrow morning. It is the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. You got to become a AAA member today. It's important. Discounts and more as well at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberries.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tony East a little bit earlier. Greg Rakestraw podcast with each 107.5thefan.com. Chris Ballard tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Speaking of staying alive, it'll be like Ballard walking down the street at the beginning of Saturday Night Fever with the paint cans, like Tony Manero. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, where you're probably going to hear like some of the same old, same old. People ask me all the time, so he has to say something different. There has to be a new path. You have to do something. Do you really expect that? That's part of the issue here, too. Part of the issue is what is said and then what is done is no longer believable. And people say, well, no, it's apathetic this and apathetic. That is the quickest path to it. Because believe me, you've gone through the non-believing stage, which was both front and back end of Andrew Luck saying goodbye. But now you're just simply put, especially over the last 4 years, in this is who they are. And especially this particular year, you fail to recognize it, and you're just done with it. But when you ask me, will they finally change? Will he change up? You know, obviously just incredibly comfortable. I don't mind this at all. I don't mind somebody believing in themselves and, you know, what they do in their job, their thoughts, or their blueprint in this case. I understand that everybody does. But at some point, when that doesn't work all the way down to your core values, you got to do something new. You got to have or be willing to change. And that's the first thing any Colts fan ever asks me now that they're, again, traveling down a path well-traveled in the past. And I just suggest I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't know why anybody would. And clearly there is a belief. Can you imagine going into the 9th year with one playoff win? 9 years. It's incredible. So what to look forward to tomorrow? I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of the same. Because that's what you get when you decide to head down this path again. More of the same. It'd be great if their hope becomes a reality and then all of a sudden things change for the better. Everything falls into place. And then everybody out there that ever thought that I was a clown would say, hey, I told you so. I told you the quarterback was going to be good. Hey, I told you the general manager knew what he was doing. Hey, I told you the head coach had head coaching chops all the way around. I mean, hell, that'll happen after they win a game. That'll happen with a lot of fans, especially the younger generational fans, after they win a game, because that's all they have to go on, or those fleeting moments of success that never last. And that's what happens when you don't identify, then deal with as soon as you can the issues. This is what you get. 239-1070. Time for your calls if you want to do that. I saw this from Mark Monteith, who used to be the longtime beat writer for the Pacers back in the Indianapolis Star days. And this is in reference to Tony East and I talking about Benedict Mathurin. And whether or not Benedict Mathurin goes back to the bench or stays in the starting lineup, or if he would bristle on coming off the bench. Does he want to stay in the lineup? Do they put Neesmith back in once he gets back out there and is a full go again? And Mark Monteith had written this earlier today. Mathurin had been a talented player who didn't impact winning because he dominated the ball and forced the action. He's coming around. From his rookie season, his usage rate has dropped from 24.6 to 21.7. And again, this is over my head. These are a lot of analytics, and I don't get it. You can only imagine. His win share over 48 has risen from .038 to .052. I have zero idea what any of that notary means, but that means somebody like Mark, much smarter than I, comes up with a reason to justify just how much better and how improved Benedict Mathurin is, and I'm on board with it. I just kind of look at it eyeball-wise as I just like it because he's a hardcore dude, and that's real. There's nothing fake about his hardcoreness. That's just how he is. He doesn't want to joke. He doesn't want to have fun. He wants to go out there, and he wants to beat that ass. Good stat, Mark Monteith. Helping a guy out. From Gregory, JMV, believing in yourself is one thing, being delusional is another. Colts leadership is so stuck in their ways. It's detrimental to the success. Yeah, the easy way out is what this is. And as I mentioned yesterday, you go back to 2022, and I was absolutely wrong about that being a clown show. It wasn't. Yeah, the outcome was not what they wanted, but the effort was there. The effort was there to identify the issue and then damn straight do something about it. Which, especially in the past 2 years, they have failed to do. Think about Gus Bradley. Did you have to wait until his contract ran out to identify that as an issue? No. But conveniently, you just let the contract run out and, hey, we're going to address this. I want the Jim Irsay, I want the organization, I want anybody who is willing to see what is real and address what needs to be done. The players have brought it up. Like egos in the locker room, according to DeForest Buckner yesterday. That should be an egoless locker room. What in the hell is everybody going to be patting themselves on the back about? About what? Giving up 40-plus to the Giants defensively? Is that what your defense? Well, I know Zaire Franklin had 1,000 tackles. Great. They gave up 45, well, what was it, 45 points to the Giants? 40-plus to the Giants. That's what you should be thinking about. That's the impact. And I get why you as a Colts fan, you kind of look around and you go, does anybody really care what's going on? Because I think that you have to by now, don't you? If you recognize the issue in 22, don't you do right now? Yeah, you need a president of football operations. Hey, JMV, the caller from Anderson a little bit ago was right. You should try to check out that game. Anderson is strong this year, and Liberty Christian might win the state in 1A. A couple of dudes on both sides will probably end up playing college basketball somewhere. Thank you, Calvin, for that. Pacers are going to go on a big run after the All-Star break. We'll end up making the playoffs. Thank you. I forgot about this. Boiler Up sent this a little bit earlier. I didn't get to it. The Chris Ballard bingo. I've never been big on these bingo cards you do for subjects. The bingo card, I guess, for tomorrow at 9 a.m. is we like our guys. If my approach gets me fired, so be it. Look, take care of our own people first.
Does it have him saying BS on there at some point?
I blanking hate losing. I'm tired of not being in the playoffs. I have a lot of faith in Shane. Let's not expect him to be Superman from day one. We did do some good things on defense. I'm encouraged. I think the only one on this list you're going to get's look, and you're going to get that about 5,000 times. And how that is utilized by somebody that believes that they're the smartest person in the room in every room they're ever in. Hey, look, dumbass. That's what it might as well be after. Hey, look, dumbass. All right, why are you asking that question? You're stupid. I'm really smart. That's really what that means when it's brought up. And believe me, if you're talking to me, it's 100% appropriate. Hey, look, numbnuts. You're a numbnuts. And you get on there and you yip-yap for 3 hours a day. What do you know? I'm just telling you what that really means. Look is, all right, so I got to answer this question for this yap that has no idea what they're talking about. Oh, this is so beneath me asking this question. I'm the guru. Look, numbnuts. That's the only one I think you get tomorrow. I don't know if you're going to get a defiant at all. I think you're going to get more of the same. It's tomorrow, 9 a.m. right here. Aaron agrees tomorrow will be just the next excuse. And with the excuse, by the way, Aaron, the excuse was already made. Doing what you're doing, initiating this once again, that's the excuse. The whole close excuse. Or the Gus Bradley defensive excuse. See, you could have done that a year ago. You know why? That would have been more difficult. It was much easier to do now. Let me tell you this. If you wait to make decisions, like people always say, you can't let the fans make decisions or you'll be sitting with them. But on the other end of that, if you wait for the fans to look smarter than you, that's problematic for everybody. How many times over the past, especially 4 years, I'm taking 4 years, the last time postseason-wise, 6 years, the last time they have a postseason win. You can go 10 altogether. You can go, obviously, 8 deep with a general manager. But how many times in recent memory, and even going back a year ago, have the fans, whether it was in the secondary or at tight end or going back to the wide receiver or skill position players, identified issues before the issues have been identified organizationally? And I'm assuming they weren't identified because certainly there was no energy put into rectifying the issue immediately, which has been obvious. So that also holds true. The fans going with what they dictate will put you next to them in the seats. But you also, at the same time, you can't have the fans be ahead of you in making decisions and understanding the situation more than you do. And that has happened far too many times, especially in the last handful of years. It just simply cannot. Quick break. We'll come back. Me and you on the other side. Your chance to win Brian Regan tickets. That and a lot more. AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Seriously. Weather, roads, more cold temps on the inbound. Become a AAA member today. Make sure somebody has your back when you're out there on the roads. That's AAA.com today.
Embarrassing, so this song goes out to him.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Clearly the Titans identified an issue after 2 years. 2 years of Rand Carthon as general manager, and that was it. So they're keeping Brian Callahan, their coach, and running Rand. So in the market for a new general manager in Tennessee, in the market for a new head coach in Vegas, Antonio Pierce, after 1 year done, Gerard Mayo, after a year done. I'm not all for quick triggers. But let's face it, this wouldn't really be. But I am all for, as I've said over and over, identifying issues and then dealing with them and not just waiting. I mean, you just kind of use the fan base up on that. Think about these last 4 years for you guys. I said this yesterday. Everybody pointed out the empties in Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, and I didn't. I pointed out those that were there because I thought that was about as ballsy, fansy as you can get there. Because you got the inbound weather, and then it was even worse when you rolled out of there. And you go and watch an absolute worthless, needless game. In terms of interest for you, they had no bearing on anything. Other than Doug Peterson was out there, and that was going to be it after that game. And as we saw and knew at the time, Gus Bradley was directing defensively his final game with the Colts. Had no bearing, but you guys showed up. So it wasn't to me about the empties. It was more about who showed up. I got to give you guys credit. Now, I had to go, and I was there, but that was an effort by you guys. So it wasn't more about the empties to me. It was about those that show up. And in the last 4 years especially, there's no big mystery here. So that's what's funny. Sometimes I would suggest it is good to have incredible fortune. I mean, just to be lucky. And there's nothing wrong with hope. I always have to have hope. I have hope on a lot of things. More times than not, that hope does not come to fruition. But when you're a football team, you battle in the NFL, and you got everything coming at you to live by hope and not go on the knowledge of evidence. That's how you become the Bengals of a couple of decades, the Lions of multi-decades, the Browns, and those were all teams, all organizations that we were promised during the golden era, during the Manning era, that this team would never be. And let's face it, they have been, certainly in the last four, they have been much closer to that than they have to what we were told to expect. Just the evidence and the knowledge of the evidence should be enough, I think, than anything else. All right, I got time for your calls coming up on the other side. If you are on hold, I will get to you. If you are not and you want to get there, damn straight you should. Chris Ballard with the media tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The Fan will carry that for you with KB and Andy, the morning wake-up call. They got that for you at 9 a.m. right here. Chris Ballard with the media. The end of the season conversation, 9 a.m. coming up tomorrow morning. Busy rest of the week. I'll explain. I got stuff to give away for you as well. But time for you at 239-1070. The stream, the app, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And the beat goes on. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, the wild card weekend is coming up. You can see the schedule for that. Was that yesterday or late Sunday it was released? 4:30 with the Chargers and the Texans. I think this is going to be a quick one and done for Houston at home. Saturday, 4 o'clock. The prime video game on Saturday night, opposite of the JMV takeover. Steelers and the Ravens. The Steelers look like they're just ready to limp on home. You think about the Colts, for example. You look at the Texans and the Steelers and way each of those teams limp to the finish, and you go, all right, great. And the Colts are sitting at home. Broncos, Bills on Sunday. That's at 1. Packers, Eagles. 4:30 coming up on Sunday afternoon. Commanders, Buccaneers. Correct me if I'm wrong. When was it? Was it the Matt Ryan season when there was some mention regarding Baker Mayfield here? Anybody out there wish that Baker Mayfield would have been a choice? Would that have mattered with the way this organization is right now? Did it matter more the way things are going down in Tampa? Because did we not, going into the one ill-fated Matt Ryan season of 2022, knock around and discuss a level of interest in Baker Mayfield? Commanders, Buccaneers, 8 o'clock coming up on Sunday night. Monday's got the Vikings and the Rams. And Sam Darnold, and by the way, shout out to the Gorman. Gorman basically forever had been touting the greatness of Sam Darnold, and then finally that became a reality this season. Vikings-Rams coming up on Monday night. Pacers a winner last night. Pacers get the Bulls coming up tomorrow night. Golden State at home again coming up on Friday. And the return of Trace Jackson Davis, as I mentioned, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. It is Chris Ballard with the media. 9 a.m. that coverage begins of that. We'll have it for you during the morning wake-up call with KB and Andy right here on The Fan. Coming up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. All right, 239-1070. A lot of time for you here in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll deal with that and have a busy day with reaction to the Ballard stuff coming up on tomorrow's show. But 239-1070 is that number, and Adam is up next on the show. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Woo, I'm doing good. Thanks for letting me into the AAA lounge, baby.
You got it, buddy. I'm glad you're there, Adam. AAA. Become a AAA member today. You got to have somebody out there on those roads because I did not bring this up, Adam, and I'm glad you're alluding to AAA. We've got apparently snowfall on the inbound again at the end of the week. They're suggesting around, 3.5 or so inches, 3 inches around here. More in southern Indiana coming up to the end of the week. Is this accurate?
Gross.
This is the European model dictating more snowfall, which I'm pretty much sick of it already.
Hey, but it's nice and toasty here in the AAA lounge, man.
No doubt about that, too. And by the way, shout out to Gary Emmons and Ron DeVault, who get the plows after my driveway every single time. I love them. I have some of the greatest friends and neighbors of all time, by the way. Adam, go ahead.
All right. Well, I thought I could swear, was it last season when the Colts missed the playoffs, losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars? We were listening to Mr. Irsay say the chips were all in, and we're gonna change things. And here we are again at the end of this.
Yeah, that was the Carson Wentz end season when they almost didn't let him on the team plane to fly home after that loss in Jacksonville. Yeah,
it's so crazy. Like, I can't believe they're gonna tell the fan base, right, wrong, or different, we're gonna run it back. Like, we like what we got. We're close. We're close. We're right there. We're gonna run it back. And in my opinion, the Colts play in the worst division in the AFC. I mean, the Jags, the Colts, the Tennessee Titans, and the Houston. Like, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't either be winning this division or at least making the playoffs. In 9 years, like, come on, man. This has got to stop.
Yeah, and there's no signs of it because clearly with the way that they're bringing everybody back and the fashion in which they're doing it, they don't think there's an issue.
I mean, who's gonna come in? Like Gus Bradley had to go. Like,
right,
get him out of here. The team quit on him. They didn't want to play for him. But Gus Bradley, he's the one? Like, he's the problem? Like, is that what we're?
Well, hell, I mean, he was the problem last year. He would be the problem the year before. He's been an ongoing problem, but they didn't want to deal with it. It's just easy to deal with it when his contract runs out.
Oh, but yeah, I hear you there. It's just like, all right, guys, like we're gonna point the finger at Gus Bradley and not Shane Steichen or Chris Ballard or anybody else's job. Like if the goal of the NFL of the 32 teams is to win the Super Bowl, and we're gonna run it back thinking that we have the hope of winning the Super Bowl, bro, they are out of their mind.
You know what? And I may have gone overboard with Steichen, but I think it's justified. I just think it's justified because he definitely regressed as a coach, and it does not look like that he either A, wants to mess with, or B, would be good at dealing with everything that entails the gig of being an NFL coach. It's not just, lining up and drawing up offensive plays as he did as an offensive coordinator. So I felt justified, but maybe I went overboard. And the other thing regarding Richardson, and everybody says, not everybody, but certainly a percentage of people say, you're not giving this kid enough of a chance. I am going on the evidence that we have seen from Anthony Richardson so far. What more can I go on? And I refuse to go on hope as organizationally they are doing with this group.
Jay, they drafted him on hope. Like when they saw him in the underwear Olympics in the combine. This guy had no experience at a University of Florida that said that it would translate to the NFL. They said, "Oh, we got a quarterback whisperer. We got Shane Steichen. We can get it done." I'm sorry, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Adam, thank you for the call, and I'm glad you're lurking inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live with everybody else in there. Thank you very much for that. I will understand the hope in the draft because I sit here before you. Somebody was making fun of me last week. I forget it was about me being all in on Anthony Richardson. I wasn't. I thought they were going to draft Will Levis, which would be just as bad, if certainly not worse. I thought that's who they were going to draft. So it turned out, neither one of those options, or at least the other option, would not be a better option. My issue with it is not going forward at that moment. My issue is not quickly or accurately enough understanding or identifying that this doesn't work. It's not really about the now. I mean, you pay these guys, you believe in these guys to be able to understand what's forthcoming. And I know we're not talking about Karnak, but I'm not the one that's saying it. These football guys say it all the time in terms of the draft. Well, our draft board told us all this. We knew this was going to happen. I mean, if all these smarter than everybody else guys know what's going to happen, then how do you not know or feel what's going to happen right now? I just ask, what has given you the inclination of belief here? And that's what I said about moving forward with everybody involved. So where are the signs? Where's the evidence of this belief? Because you were a game under 500, because you beat the Jaguars in overtime the final regular season weekend, or because you beat the Patriots or the Jets or the Bears? I mean, you have no solidified big-time wins. What gives you that belief? That's all I ask. And that's why I made amends regarding my thoughts on 2022. Because as I looked at that as clownish acts of desperation, really what it was addressing issues at the moment. And I should have been more understanding of that than I was back in 2022. Because now you just kind of let everything slide. I mean, hell, they let Gus Bradley slide. Rick Venturi had been telling you about that for how many years? But you just conveniently wait until his contract runs out. The quicker you identify, the quicker you can move on. Nick's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Never better. How are you, JMV? Happy
Nick,
New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Hey, I know Seinfeld brought this up on an episode once. When do we stop saying Happy New Year? At what point in the new year?
I'd say once the Colts are eliminated from playoffs.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah, well, yeah. Then maybe we went a little bit too far with the Happy New Year right there, Nick.
I did want to recognize, though, that what a great 2024 it was for the Irsay family. Jim has returned to better health. We were well below the salary cap. The team was mediocre, but not completely embarrassing. And he is not going to have to pay multiple people for executive positions on the team. So let's recognize the Irsay family. And then the cherry on top was the Eras Tour selling out at the Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Irsay family gets all of the proceeds from the concessions due to the sweetheart deal after they threatened to leave Indianapolis.
Well, they certainly benefit, and Billy Joel and Sting will add to that in February. And I tell you what, thank you, Nick. You call anytime. Thank you very much. I'm more obviously of the football relation and the operation with this team. And people say, well, ownership and Jim Irsay is a major part of the issue. And while letting this slide is certainly not the Jim Irsay that I would know, and that's why I recognize, and that's why I brought up this. That's why if you can find anybody out there that you can believe in to have the all-encompassing ability to look over what's going on in this organization. You're not going to find a Bill Polian. You're not going to, make, again, another Bill Polian. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. But if you remember correctly, when this organization played and performed at its highest level, you had somebody that watched over everything. From the football operations to the day-to-day to the lack of showing up on time, to locker room issues, to paper clips on desks, to can't go down the wrong, that's a forbidden hallway, all this stuff that we thought was laughable, all this stuff we thought was overbearing and tedious was all incredibly necessary. And even beyond that of Peyton Manning, listen, it's not lost on me you have that. I just had said yesterday, I want Jim Irsay to be in a position to where he can kind of ease back. And I know that he put the trust in this group, but this group, and especially his general manager, they have let him down and let him down a great deal. He has never taken the ire of the fan base as he's taken it right now. So ease back. Find somebody out there that can preside over this all and utilize that somebody. I know somebody asked me yesterday, well, who would that be? Like, I don't have a name for you that would be available right now, but I think I described it as like a Bruce Arians type. That's no nonsense, no BS. Now, obviously, it would have to be, he's more of a football-related guy. That's just the type of attitude. But clearly, this group, from what DeForest Buckner told you yesterday, this group, from what they and how they had to punish the quarterback midseason, clearly you have to ride herd on these guys. Somebody does. Because the coach has, you could say there was a punishment for the quarterback midseason. But I will also tell you that wasn't just a punishment. That was more out of convenience, believing at the time Joe Flacco had a better opportunity to win games for you. Again, it was a decision made out of, what have I described? Convenience. Yeah, get away from the convenient decisions. Get to the decisions that are justified. With evidence, with knowledge, with education of the situation. and not just pushing that can down the road. So, yeah, it's everybody involved. This is the first time I can remember when I have seen a fan base that has been this angry with and about the direction of this organization, and it's all falling on the shoulders of Jim Irsay and the owner right now. The first time in a long time. If you remember, it was identified what was necessary back to start the Manning era, and Bill Polian in here. You just if Chris can't do it right now, and he's still going to be your GM, you just need somebody that's going to be able to execute that. So you don't have egos getting in the way, or you don't have to conveniently punish your quarterback midseason for not showing up on time or for leaving too early, not recognizing the magnitude of the most valued position in the NFL. Or a head coach that does the same. A head coach that doesn't really want to talk that much with the media. Hell, Bill Polian had his own damn radio show every Monday night. You had a window to the Colts. He wasn't going to tell you everything, but he was going to be honest about a lot of things. And it was also a platform for him to vent, but it was glorious. But it was necessary. And we have seen in the past is what's necessary. That element is what has been missing. Especially if you're going to handle things the way that you've handled things here the past couple of years. Necessary. Jim's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, JMV. How are you?
Jim, fantastic. Go ahead.
Hey, real quick, is anyone going to be able to ask any questions to Ballard tomorrow at the presser?
They will ask absolutely every single question I'm sure imaginable. Yes.
Can someone just ask him, can you please rate your job performance this last year, this last season?
Job performance, I'm writing that down. Job performance rating is what you're looking for.
Anyone else that I know that works would have been fired a long time ago for that type of performance.
Listen, there are guys that have won Super Bowls that have had a high level of success that don't get 9 years. I mean, you talk about a stratospheric anomaly right here. 9 years and one playoff win.
Right. And beside you, when is someone else from the media
I don't do anything.
Step up
and
start ripping
these guys cover it on a daily basis. I get on here and yip it for 3 hours, man. I mean, I'm so far away from a journalist and journalistic integrity. I just come on here to spout off, I spout off opinions. So yeah, I'm never going to take away that from those that actually do that every day, man. That's just not me. I appreciate your love. I appreciate your love for the show and listening to the show, but those guys do their gigs to the best of their ability. I mean, I just go on here and swoop in for 3 hours and yap and then swoop back out. So it's not a fair comparison to them.
Well, one of those guys needs to light a torch and write something that is what we all as fans believe, that Ballard has got to go.
He not. No matter what is said tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., no matter what is asked, he's not going anywhere. There's going to be a 9th year. So there will be nothing. Absolutely not. Even if you think about if memory serves, when Grigson was cut loose, I think that was in early February, was it not? So even if you have that in the history, now it has been laid out. It is moving forward with this group, and no matter what they ask, no matter how they present questions, how hardcore they get coming up tomorrow, that's not going to change. 9 years, my good man. 9 years, Jim, is what you're looking at.
Outrageous.
Outrageous. Jim, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the kind words, too.
Thanks. See you.
Seriously. I am nowhere near in that category. Those dudes are so much smarter than me, too. Can you imagine me having to put pen to paper or type out columns or articles. Good God.
I would like to see you at one of the Colts press conferences. That could be fun.
He ain't got no. I would. I have thought about getting in there sometimes because I know Kevin does it on the. What is that? Is it Zoom? The Zoom thing. I could do that. But listen, I'm not adding anything. This is, you know what? It's funny. I've been like barking about convenience. This is convenient too. Now, you do have to face the facts. One of these days, we'll talk to all these guys again, and this is going to be on public record in a public forum, but that's the way that it is. The one thing that I want to maintain, and hopefully this comes across in my presentation and in the commentary, there is never, ever with anybody, I'm trying to think if there has been. Hold on. Can I say never, ever? Have I ever asked to grind before? There's nothing. None of this is personal. Like, there's nothing. I'm not pissy and getting personal about any of this. But I will try to be the voice for you and understanding that in this case, we're not always going to agree on everything. But I think this situation with the Colts is something we do in lockstep agree on with, the future of the team, the president of the team. So we're not always going to agree. But I always want to make sure with everything in this market locally that it's never interpreted that there's something personal. Now, I'll let you know when it is because I'm sure that there are instances in the past where I do make things personal because I do get pissy. And listen, there's no doubt I hold grudges like crazy, but not in the past with any of the subject matter that I talk about and what I cover and what relates and interests you. So I always try to keep that part out of it. Now, this is solely about the operation and where that operation is right now. So I think you could say fair and balanced, just not incredibly bright. What do they say across the hall? They say fair and balanced across the hall. I'm fair and balanced, just not incredibly bright. Very kind of you, Jim, to say, though. Hey, give me David in here on line 2 before the break. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have to tell you, I used to listen to music on my car.
You
radio.
did? What were you listening to, David?
Oh, a wide variety of music. But
okay.
That aside, now when I turn on the car radio, I listen to you.
Do you really? That's very kind of you, David. Thank you.
So,
does it run? Does anybody ever want to ride with you again, though? Does it run the family away? You go, oh, my God.
Well, it runs in the family, I guess. My brother actually turned me on to your program.
See, normally I run people, especially if you have a wife or a girlfriend or a daughter or a grandma. If it's somebody like they go, oh, my God, this is awful. Daughters notoriously hate it when their dads turn me on in the car. The daughters go, yeah, kids, I mean, is there anything else here? Can we sit in silence? How about rolling down the window so I can hear the road noise?
Well, I do that a lot because I drive classic cars and I like the rumble.
I got you, brother. All right, go ahead, David. Thank you for the nice words. Go ahead.
So, something my father's father told him and my father told me years ago that I think bears saying for people to be able to think about concerning the Colts, but life in general. A bad situation left alone is only going to get worse.
Yeah.
You have to take some kind of action to rectify the situation. If you don't.
Yeah, that's disappointing. And that aspect, David, is certainly understood by most and disappointing. And that's why when I mentioned for the first time in a long time that the fan base around here, they have pointed anger at Jim Irsay, and that's at the very top of the list as to why. No doubt.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I just wanted to pass that along because that is what I've been thinking about for the last 2 or 3 weeks, hoping that we see some kind of change, and now realizing we're not going to.
That's tough.
And the quarterback situation. Shoot, anybody would love to have a quarterback. Man, look at that arm. He can throw it clear into the 4th row of seats. Yeah.
And he might.
But you don't get points for that.
No. No.
Yeah, you don't get points for that.
No, you're right. Hey,
And,
David, thank you very much. Keep listening and tell your brother thank you for turning you on to the show and getting you away from music.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
That's very kind of you, David. You know, I have not been 100% accurate on Richardson. I'll tell you what that is coming up on the other side as well. And I've been faulty on Richardson. Hey, by the way, somebody just pointed this out. It was SPT on our Facebook account. Do they need – these are the fat pictures. When are they going to stop using the fat pictures to me here? Is there a big difference in the – is that really truly the fat me right there?
It is. You do look remarkably different. Have you taken any promotional photos with anybody since you
I don't think
losing
so.
the weight? Well,
No.
you should get on that.
Because I don't think they have – SPT says they need to update these photos with the lean, mean new JMV machine. The problem is I think all they have is fat photos of me. This only happened in like the last 5+ months. I think that's all they have. It's weird. I look right now via the AAA lounge, AAA membership, become a member today, YouTube Live. I look at this. You think I look older here? Do I need to shave this? Am I looking older?
The little 5 o'clock shadow you got going on?
right there.
See, I like facial hair,
Yeah.
so I'm a biased person to ask on that.
I'm looking older. I'm going to do a little something on that. If you guys are watching right now, issues with my face. Quick break. We'll come back. Don't go anywhere. We'll entertain, if nothing else, right here in the final 30. Stay right there. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch. Right. 1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Chris Ballard, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. His postseason presser. You'll hear it live right here on The Fan during the morning wake-up call with KB and Andy. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Make sure you lock it in and rip off the knob. But hell, you don't even have a knob anymore. I'll be your knob. John writes this: what does the best-case scenario for next year even look like? Just curious what you think a successful season would look like. Who has to succeed? What areas would be improved, etc. As always, love and appreciate the show. John, you have to, and this is just riding on the air of hope, you have to have your quarterback be anywhere in the general vicinity of matching expectations with both your thoughts combined with a stat line, availability, winning, and reason to have him around for the long term. All of which hasn't happened. Again, you're riding on the air of hope. That's this whole season, in a nutshell, comes down to that. If you get another year of this past year, a third year in this case, another year of this past year, or a discombobulated, injury-riddled season of his rookie campaign, then everybody, and I mean everybody, including you, everybody's screwed. And that's the hope. Now, if you're asking in terms of what's a successful season, I mean, you always look for, to make the postseason, but I would also argue it's not one of these situations where you just kind of back into it in a half-assedly way. This is something to where, to justify these types of hanging with it decisions, you have to show that finally everything involved, thoughts, blueprint, foundational execution, coaching, quarterback, finally has to be right. That's the proof. And that's the proof to where if you make the postseason, this whole thing is justified. And that's the only way to do it. But it all starts with your quarterback. And you know how much of a stride, how much improvement you're going to have to see. And that's why you have so many non-believers out there. Because whatever you have hoped for in recent history has not just been denied, it has gone to all levels of FUBAR. They consistently, that's what they've really been known of here recently. And I always say in the last 4 years because that's the last postseason make. But what they've been known for more so than anything else, their calling card, their signature has been screwing something up. Screwing up a good thing. Screwing up an opportunity. Messing up an opportunity. That's been their forte. But no, postseason, all things that would justify, if you're talking about things that would justify continuation of, let's just say, for example, for lack of a better description, the big three, I think it's also just beyond postseason recognition here. Look around you. I mean, you got Tennessee that's effectively starting over again. You got Jacksonville effectively starting over again. And you had a season to where, now you look at Houston coming up, they're going to be on the hook for a lot of money and some things, although they won the division again and they're 10-7, may not work out anywhere in the neighborhood that you felt. If you were ever capable in your belief system and taking advantage of something you would think next year this division would be it. But again, how many times have we said that in the past? So if you're asking me, I think those are areas in which you start. But everything hinges on the quarterback position. And really, simply put, that's where it starts and that's where it ends. Thank you, John, for that. 239-1070 is the number. Again, Chris Ballard tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. here on The Fan. And his press conference. We'll carry that live. Mitch is on line 4. Hello, Mitch. How are you?
Jim B, what's going on?
Mitch, go ahead, brother.
Hey, absolutely agree with everything you said. Look, we got to hit Irsay in the pocketbook, right? Beer sales, nacho sales, hot dog sales, that's where it's going to be. Taylor Swift coming in, he gets a cut of all that. We got to hit him in the pocketbook. Ballard has to go, dude. Has to go.
That pocketbook impact would have to come next year, and Ballard's going to get a 9th year. So
I agree.
Hey, I am curious about this, seriously. And you're a big-time Colts fan, right?
Right.
Mitch, are you more in the category of, all right, I don't believe in this operation right now, so prove me wrong. Do you want to see that? Or do you want to see this absolutely, positively, finally swallowed up right down the drain and then be forced to start again? What are you rooting for?
Down the drain. Let's start over.
You know,
Let's
Mitch,
clean house.
that's something that I would guess that there are a lot of people that would agree with you on that very thing. And I'm talking about the entirety of next year, not just a game or two or a moment, but the entirety of next year. And that is the position that you're put into, many of you are, as a fan, because of your non-belief in what you've seen over the past 8 years and what you believe this team, this organization to be right now. That is so incredibly detrimental. But I completely understand the feeling, and it does not surprise me one bit.
Absolutely. You've mentioned the stats, right? What kind of GM can stick around this long with this record? I mean, what the F are we doing?
Anything else you got there, Mitch?
No. Thanks for taking my call,
Mitch, you call anytime. Thank you very much. We need something uplifting right here. Again, Chris Ballard tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We talked Pacers a little bit earlier. Tony East. Greg Rakestraw also on the show a little bit earlier. Full recap on everything tomorrow. I'm going to be with the Indy Ignite coming up on Saturday at the Fishers Events Center. The inaugural Indy Ignite volleyball season. Go there and hang out. I'm not bad at volleyball. If you guys have ever seen Top Gun, I think I could do that two-man volleyball in jeans now, too. I'll be there for you. Can we get something uplifting really quick here, James? 239-1070. Hey, James, give me Fulton right here. I know I can get uplifted by Fulton. Hey, buddy.
Hello, John.
Hello, Fulton.
How are you?
I'm great. Can you not tell?
Yes, I can.
Hi, buddy. What do you got? Uh-oh. Is Fulton gone? It has sounded like Fulton is now gone. Uh-oh. Was that us? Is that on our end or his end? Hey, Fulton, are you back?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, buddy.
All right. Sorry. Give me a second.
You got to tune that ukulele up, brother.
Yeah, I may. Let's turn up. I'm sorry about that, John. Gotta tune that up.
You sound like a Colts fan trying to play the ukulele right now, Fulton.
Yeah.
Hitting some sour notes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I might come to see you at the event on Saturday night.
Why don't you? I think that's a heck of a plan you got right there, Fulton. I do.
Sure will. Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you though, have you heard the Earth, Wind, and Fire and Fulton remix of September on the JMV Takeover yet. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard it yet.
You haven't heard it?
Nope.
It's magnificent. And thanks to Eddie Garrison for putting that together last week. Actually, I take that back. Nathaniel put that together last week. I think it was either one of the two put it together last week. But it is the remix of You, Fulton, and Earth, Wind, and Fire and their classic song from 1978, September. It sounds outstanding.
Nice.
Always need you, buddy. Thank you for being uplifting.
Yeah, send me the recording. I can get that on my YouTube.
You got that, too. And tune that ukulele up a little bit there, Don Ho, okay?
I sure will, John. And
See you,
hopefully
buddy.
we'll see each other soon. So, and I'm getting ready for my basketball tournament.
You are?
26. Yep.
How about if we need to get all the fans of this show up for your basketball tournament sometime.
Well, we're going to be having it at Wabash College.
Yeah.
So we want you guys to come, and you're invited. So.
Crawfordsville, Indiana.
Yep, that's where it's at.
Got it. All right, Fulton. Have a great day, buddy. Thank you.
Yep, you too.
That is our guy, Fulton, right there. So, Ray, not the Peyton Manning statue guys on hold. All right, we'll come back with that and a lot more. Close out things. Again, Chris Ballard tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. here on The Fan, his season-ending press conference. KB and Andy will have that for you on the morning wake-up call, 9 a.m. right here. No need to go anyplace else. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Greg Rakestraw going around the Horizon League is coming up at the top of the hour. My friend Greg has a volleyball setter at IU Indy, the program. I'll tell Greg about that. If there's anybody that knows about all that stuff, it's Greg Rakestraw. Top of the hour here on The Fan. Ray is at 239-1070 right now. Ray, welcome to the show. Are you calm?
Yeah, I'm calm, John.
Good, buddy.
I got a lot of good things going on in my life.
Good.
And a few bad things going on in my life.
Uh-oh. What's the bad thing?
Well, since I've been calling out guys all around the city, let me call out the Marion County's clerk's office. Quick story. I got a garnishment on my paycheck for about $465.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said. They didn't even give me a chance to pay it. But they took $360 out of my check on December 20th, and then on January 3rd, they want to come back and take another $300. So I got an overpayment due, but they're saying they haven't received the first initial payment yet because of the snow days and the holidays.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said.
So that's the clerk's office. You got an issue there. Where else? You got another issue beyond the team, the football team?
Yeah, got another issue too. I just accepted a position that is work from home outside of the company that I do work for.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out how to lie to my current manager about why I'm leaving.
Well, let's think about some ways you can lie. What do you got off the top of your head?
Well, I thought about airing out everybody's dirty laundry about who's clocking in late and, who's taking extended lunch breaks.
Sure. Yeah, you just call it. Exactly.
But I said, nah.
Yeah, rat everybody out at this point, Ray.
Well, hell, I said I'm going to leave the carrot there for him.
Now, hey, Popo hasn't been to your place recently, correct? Everything's good there?
Yeah, everything's good there. I guess you can say they just let me off with a warning.
What did they say to you, Ray? What was said by IMPD?
Oh, well, simply they just wanted to know my intent and if I was serious about January 17th going down and painting a statue if Ballard isn't fired. So I don't know if they'll be monitoring me all the way up until the 17th or how that's going to look.
They may have somebody staked out like right out in front of your house or something.
Yeah,
you may have to roll out there and put a banana in their tailpipe like Beverly Hills Cop.
No, I'm going to keep my nose nice and clean.
Good. That's good. I'm glad you're taking my advice. And then one of these days in the future, you stop by. Ray, at the end of this month, we're at the Legendary with our friend Becky, Workingman's Friend. So you come out, join me, and I'm not on a cheeseburger diet right now. You come out and you hang out with the show on that day at the end of this month, and I'll get you one of the world famous cheeseburgers.
Okay. Now,
from Workingman's Friend. How about that?
I'm a bit weird, John.
I couldn't tell by now by the conversations we've had.
I only eat my cheeseburgers plain. Just me.
No, man, that's okay. No, the Robin Miller style is double cheese, no middle bun. And we'll keep it plain for you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you got it.
But I do want to say this, though, John, about everybody wanting to say they hit Irsay in the pocketbooks. One thing that I did notice at Sunday's game, there was a lot of fathers there with their kids. So I think that's a good thing that, since the tickets were so low, the kids were able to come out and they had a great time. The kids that I was sitting around all had a great time. They were kicked up, feet all up on the next section that was empty.
Yeah. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Hey, Ray, thank you very much. End of the month, too, by the way. Workingman's Friend. All right?
I'll be there.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Ray. Keeping that nose clean is Ray. Brian Regan tickets, January the 9th. That's on Thursday, right? He's a funny dude right there. Clues Memorial Hall, which is a fantastic venue. Brian Regan at 239-1070. Number 9, you can go on me. Hey, if you're on hold, tell James you're on hold and you've been on hold and you didn't make it on. And I'll put you back on first things first on tomorrow's show. Chris Ballard tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., morning wake-up call. His press conference covered live right here, so keep it right here. Coming up tomorrow, again, 9 a.m. during the morning wake-up call. Chris Ballard right here on The Fan. I'll get you on tomorrow if you were left on hold today. Greg Rakestraw's got you coming up on the other side. Have a terrific, stay warm, and a safe evening. We'll catch you back here tomorrow at 3.